Oh, hi, everybody. It's Ezra Levant here. It's July 17th. Welcome to our daily live stream. You know, I do it usually Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. My friends Sheila Gunn Reid and David Menzies do it Tuesdays, Thursdays. I had to bow out on Wednesday. I had a tooth thing. I had to go to the dentist. You know, it happens. So I'm sorry I haven't seen you since Monday. I like these noontime shows because we get to stretch our legs a bit, be a little bit more freestyle as opposed to scripted. We can show some fun vids, kibitz a bit, and of course the most important feature is what YouTube calls a super chat. Of course there's the live stream, we're coming to you live. On the right hand side of the video screen is a little window with a ticker tape of comments made by you. And I see them out of the corner of my eye, but I'm mainly looking into the camera. But when someone makes a super chat, when they throw a few bucks or loonies or toonies or pesos or rubles or rupees or kroners behind it, puts it in a bright color, and we get to keep 70% of that money. It doesn't all go to YouTube. In fact, we get the lion's share of it. Now, I think still 30% commission for YouTube is a bit high, but we're grateful for what we can get because we've been demonetized in the main by YouTube. So thank you to you who super chat. And I do notice the super chats because it's colorful. I see them on my screen. And Justin, our producer, sends them to me so I don't miss them. So thanks for participating in the super chat. I think it's the fun part. I think it's the fun part of the show. Justin also prepares a list of suggested videos that he scans the environment. He sees what I'm maybe tweeting about. He sees stuff of the company that we put out there. And I'm just so pleased. One of the exciting things about this week is that we have a new rebel. We've got a new rebel reporter. You know David and Sheila quite well. They come on twice a week to do the show. You know Kean Bexley in Calgary. I'm here in Toronto. We hired a new reporter out in Vancouver, and she's out and about in that beautiful city. The weather is so nice out there. Like when it rains, yeah. But boy, is it pretty out there in Vancouver, BC. It's Canada's third largest city after Toronto and Montreal. It's such an interesting city. It's very Pacific. It's outward looking. It's very Chinese, very South Asian, very Pacific. It's a million miles away psychologically from the Ottawa, Toronto, Montreal triangle. And politically it's very different. I think they feel like they have much more in common with Seattle and maybe San Francisco and LA than they do with Toronto, Halifax, Montreal, and I think it is true. So I'm very excited that Drea Humphrey has joined us from out there, not only because she's interesting wherever she would be, but there's a lot of news out there. And I'd like to show Drea's latest video. I think this is her second vid. She talked to a Falun Gong person. What's Falun Gong? Sounds like a Chinese word. Well, it is. Falun Gong is a Chinese denomination or sect. I wouldn't call it a religion. It's more like a spiritual order. Order's the wrong word. And they used to be all the rage in China. The Chinese Communist Party supported it because it was healthy. It's really Tai Chi with a bit of a layer of theology on top of it. But when they had a large gathering of Falun Gong outside the central political offices in Beijing, and the Communist Party was surprised by that, 10,000 people show up to do Tai Chi, and the secret police didn't know, that terrified the Chinese communists. It spooked them. They thought, oh my God, 10,000 people just organized outside our office and we did not know. We must ban this group, hunt them down, kill them, literally harvest their organs. And since then, Falun Gong can be persecuted, imprisoned, tortured, and worse. There are Falun Gong followers here in Canada. Obviously, they're for democracy in China. They're very peaceful and they're very low-key. So they're not in your face like, say, a Black Lives Matter activist. But I find them very compelling, and I'm very sympathetic to Falun Gong because they're just peaceful folks. Here's Drea meeting up with a local Falun Gong protester in Vancouver.
The Falun Gong is a peaceful spiritual movement. It's largely made up of ethnic Chinese people, not harming anyone. But they are being brutally persecuted every day by the Chinese Communist government. They are but one of the many religious minorities that are subject to this re-education and systematic discrimination at the hands of the Mei West in Beijing, including Christians and Muslim Uyghurs who also face persecution there. I was on another story, but I knew that this is the type of story that Rebel needs to tell and that you guys need to hear. That's why I stepped up and put together an interview with Sue. Sue was one of the main organizers of the protest, and she has a story that mainstream media doesn't want you to know and doesn't want you to share, so make sure you do so. And it's about the horrors that are happening right now to Falun Gong practitioners in China. This includes Falun Gong practitioners with ties to Canada that Trudeau and his Liberals have seemed to forgotten or just want to forget about. Join me in the interview. So you and I met at the protest downtown at the Vancouver Art Gallery this past Sunday. Why is it that the Falun Gong practitioners, what are they protesting about here in Canada?
Well, first of all, we condemn the fact that Falun Gong has been persecuted brutally in China since 1999. So it's been 21 years.
Wow, 20 years. Eh?
Yes, and we have been protest and this atrocity committed by the Chinese Communist Party for the past 21 years. And we have been trying with the Canadian government to ask for help and to call on the Chinese Communist Party to stop the persecution.
Cut off there. I tell you the reason I want to show that. Of course, I care about the Falun Gong. In fact, we have a big focus on that here. But I really just wanted to show Drea is doing a great job out there meeting people, telling stories you're not going to see in the mainstream media. It is true that Sue from the Falun Gong tells a great story, and I hope you go to our website to watch it. I don't want to roll that interview out because it's a little low energy on Sue's part. Drea is great, and I just want to brag that Drea is just doing a great job every day. Would you agree with me on that? There's also an update on one of our Fight the Fines cases. And I don't know if you remember, but we had a big campaign, and I think we're going to rev that up again. There was a while where all the police and bylaw officers in this country went mad. And if they saw you walking outside in the park by yourself, they would arrest you for pandemic laws that they couldn't cite. They just felt they had to do something. We have over 10 cases on the go. And the very first case was in Calgary, Alberta, where a pastor who was feeding the homeless outside was arrested. I think there were 10 cops there. And he was given a ticket of about $1,000. They said, oh, you're having a big gathering. No. Those are homeless people. He's feeding them. I want you to watch that altercation. The great news is that the charges have been dropped because we provided a lawyer to this pastor. Take a look.
Legal battles don't always end in success, but this time it did. We've been fighting campaigns across the country at fightthefines.ca, fighting unreasonable fines that have been imposed on reasonable Canadians who just want to go about their lives, whether it's playing at a playground, going to a church, drinking their Tim Hortons coffee and eating a donut in a parking lot. And in this case, in downtown Calgary, it was a Christian pastor who was feeding homeless people. It literally does not get more innocent than that. And the police approached him and fined him $1,200. Well, we talked to Artur Pawlowski and we said, we'll fight your fines. With the support of our viewers, of course, at fightthefines.com. Viewers across the country were contributing to this campaign to fight against authoritarian police officers who are going way past what they're reasonably expected to do by the government. So we took this case to court. They delivered to the client, the Christian pastor, a stay, which means that the Crown says, yeah, we're not actually going to proceed with these to a judge. You can go home. The problem is the fact that Artur Pawlowski actually had to go to court in the first place. If He didn't have our support. And just like everyone else across the country who wouldn't necessarily take something like this to court, they would have just paid the fine. They would have just bit the bullet. They would have said, okay, I guess maybe I did something wrong and maybe I owe the government some money. And they would have been guilty. By submitting that fine, they would have been found guilty. They're not guilty for going about their lives. It's not something you should be guilty for feeding the homeless or taking your kids out to the playground. That's not how Canada works. Luckily, we had this victory.
Well, first of all, I thank you so much for reporting this. Like, Rebel, you're the best. I thank you, Sarah Miller, for covering the case, for taking the case. That's our lawyer that was provided by the Rebel News. Thank you so much. You all have been helpful. You spread the news. You let the people know what's going on. And you know, that's power.
And they put handcuffs on my
When the
mom.
people know what's going on, that's a powerful thing because it puts the government at check. It's not just someone that no one knows about. You brought this whole case into the public eyes, and the public should know about what's going on in their own country. So thank you so much.
That was going to be my next question is, if we don't fight back, not just Rebel News, but Canadians in general, about heavy-handed police tickets, like in this situation, in the global pandemic, when they're abusing their power as they did with you, disobeying the Constitution, violating the Constitution, what would happen if Canadians were just complacent?
Well, we are going to repeat the same history. You're talking to an immigrant, of course. You can hear that. I came from communism, Poland. We were occupied by the Russians, and we had a constitution in our country, but no one followed it. We had our rights that no one respected. No courts, no police, no media. It was a total chaos if it comes to the law. So it was few people dictating the rest of the country what is allowed, what's not allowed, no law. And if you don't put those people in check, if you don't fight for your rights, if you don't exercise your rights, I think that's the most important thing, because we think that we have the rights until we try to exercise them, and then suddenly, oops, I got a ticket. Why? I thought I have certain rights. One of those rights is to give necessities of life to the poor, to the poorest of the poor, and I got $1,200 ticket for doing that, for helping the city, for helping the most vulnerable.
Whoa, 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 whoa. 108 feet. Stand back. Okay?
Or what?
Stand
You're
back.
gonna threaten me and abuse me?
So if you don't exercise your rights, you're going to lose them. If Canadians will not wake up, the history is teaching us that the repetition is going to happen. How do you think Adolf Hitler came to power? How do you think Stalin came to power? Or Mao Zedong, or what we see in North Korea, or in China, or in Islamic nations? Those people came to power because the rest of the society was either scared or silent.
Now, even though the Crown stayed this ruling relatively early, they saw the case and they said, yeah, there's no way we're going to win this when a judge sees it. Even so, it still cost 7 hours worth of legal counsel. That's $2,200 plus some taxes. And that's actually a pretty good deal because we got a bit of a bulk discount fighting these fines across the country. Now, this kind of work, I think, is important. It's some of the most important work that we've ever done at Rebel News, but we couldn't have done it without you. And we're going to continue on with this because the government, the police officers at least, are still issuing fines just like this and still acting unreasonably in the face of this global pandemic. If you want to help us fight these fines, to fight for liberty, fight for freedom of the Canadian people, please go to fightthefines.com.
Arthur's dramatic when he talks about tyranny, but he comes from a place that had tyranny. I find that sometimes new Canadians who come from former Soviet or communist regimes care more about freedom than those of us who are naturally born in Canada to begin with. We've never lived under tyranny. We come from the generation that had the benefit of our grandparents fighting in the Second World War, but the peril of tyranny is so far removed from us, we don't think about it. I find that people from the Soviet bloc countries, the countries that were liberated in the fall of the Berlin Wall, I find people in Poland, Hungary, the Czech Republic, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, and of course Russians themselves who were freed. Ironically, they care more about our freedom here in Canada than many natural-born Canadians. Would you agree with me on that? I'm not saying you. I mean, you, if you're watching Rebel News, are probably have your dial turned up on the freedom speakers. But I think it's guys like Arthur who actually know about freedom because they had the lack of it. I think he's originally from Poland, and they had no freedom there under the Soviets. Isn't that interesting? We're talking about Falun Gong. Drea was talking to Sue, the Falun Gong immigrant from China who's worried about the lack of freedom. We have Arthur, who I think is from Poland, worried about the lack of freedom. Isn't that interesting that two freedom fighters in a row there are foreign born? And it's interesting, but it makes sense. They came here to be free. They didn't just get born here and that's, okay, I'm here. They chose to come here, probably in part because we're free. I'm going to read some super chats. Thank you for letting me show you those clips. Pink Fingernicks Nails chips in $2. Did you hear about Bill and Melinda's event 201? I think you mean event 2021. I've seen that pop up here and there. I find Bill and Melinda Gates really creepy. I find their obsession with vaccinating every human, it's taken on a creepy level. I understand the desire to help people around the world with health. I understand dealing with famine. I understand eradicating diseases. His obsession with vaccinating every human for COVID-19, I find scary. And if it were an option, if it were an elective thing, I would find it less scary. But his language is that of mandatory vaccinations of untested drugs, most likely made in China, as 90% of our medications are. Thank God the COVID-19 pandemic has not been anywhere close to the predicted levels. I think the grand total of deaths from the virus in Canada is around 9,000. Of course, that's very sad, but every year about 8,500 Canadians die from the regular flu, and that's very sad too. The good news is that it's not the models that Justin Trudeau and other politicians used to predict. For Canada, the model predicted best case scenario 50,000 deaths. Worst case scenario, 350,000 deaths. We're at not even, well, about 2% of that, right? About 2%. Like not, like you can, how is that model, how is anyone involved with that model even treated credibly anymore? We're gonna have 350,000 people dead. Nah, mate, we got 9,000 dead and it's very sad, but most of them were over the age of 80. So I'm a little bit creeped out by people who say, oh, because some 80-year-olds died in nursing homes with bad sanitation, you must give every child in the country a vaccine that was made in China. I don't want to. I'm not against vaccinations. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. But I'll tell you one thing. I don't want something cooked up in China injected into every arm in the world. So I don't want that. Johnny Mackin wrote, $10, please continue your coverage of Jessica Yaniv. That person belongs in prison. Well, we are, as you may know, suing Jonathan Yaniv. Can you go to yanivtrial.com? Because we started covering Jonathan Yaniv. He calls himself Jessica, but I think his legal name is Jonathan. And so if you go to yanivtrial.com, you'll see all our coverage there. And when we did our coverage of him, he assaulted us. He physically hit us. He hit David, he hit Kian, and we sent Sheila Gunn-Reid out there with 2 bodyguards, and we needed them because him and his crazy mom. Do you want to show that Sheila clip where the 2 bodyguards move in? They were so Sheila's just standing there at the court. Yaniv's already in trouble. And then Yaniv and his mom come to Sheila, and the 2 bodyguards just go like elevator doors. They just sort of close right up. It was amazing. They were such pros. They were standing out of the shot as Sheila was talking, and then they just came like that. It was acrobatic the way they did it. So yes, we covered Jonathan Yaniv quite closely. Now that the courts are opening back up post-pandemic, we'll be covering his various legal problems in BC. Unfortunately, we have to do so paying for bodyguards. I know it's nuts, but we're the only reporters in Canada that need to hire bodyguards because madmen like Jonathan Yaniv attack us. He attacked Kian, he attacked David, and do you have the clip there? He tried to attack Sheila. Look at this. It didn't happen, but look how quick these bodyguards jumped into the screen. Take a look.
Jonathan, are you going to plead guilty to assaulting my colleague, Kian Bexty?
Rebel media. Rebel media. Hey! No, no.
Okay, keep your hands off me.
Whoa, whoa. You go.
Are you going to plead guilty for assaulting my colleague, Kian Bexty? Jonathan! Are you going to plead guilty for assaulting my colleague, Kian Bexty? Jonathan, are you going to plead guilty to the weapons charges against you? Now, did you see that? When Jonathan...
Now that's legitimate journalism, asking an accused criminal if he's going to plead guilty, which I'm sure he will. Not touching him, not swearing at him, not even really shouting at him, just speaking in a loud voice. And it was the mom there that made the move. And did you see the two security go whoop? Because she's a madman herself, the mom. So yeah, Johnny McEnroe, we absolutely will continue our coverage. Muzzle flash, $5. There is only one way to deal with a totalitarian country, by resistance, not appeasement, FDR. I think that's right. That's what FDR said, and in the time of Teddy Roosevelt, there was a great poet called Rudyard Kipling who wrote a poem called Danegeld. Can you grab that and throw it on the screen? You know, I don't want to go on a big poetry tangent here. I love Shakespeare. If you love Shakespeare and if you get into it and you start with the easy stuff, don't start with the obscure stuff, start with the easy stuff, the fun stuff, the stuff everyone knows. Start with Romeo and Juliet. Start with Macbeth. Start with Othello. Start with Hamlet. Dip your toe into some of the sonnets that are easier to understand. I really love the play Much Ado About Nothing. It's a comedy, and the version with Kenneth Branagh and Emma Thompson is laugh out loud funny. And they really do a good job of making the language accessible. So obviously Shakespeare, the greatest poet of the English language, probably always will be. But my second favorite poet is Rudyard Kipling, a man of about a century and a half ago, who had a little bit of politics in him. There he is. And he wrote this poem called Danegeld, AD 980, 1016. So he's obviously talking about the Vikings. Can I read this? I know I'm going off on a tangent, but this is such a great poem. I'm going to read it. It is always a temptation to an armed and agile nation to call upon a neighbor and to say, "We invaded you last night. We are quite prepared to fight unless you pay us cash to go away." And that is called asking for Danegeld. And the people who ask it explain that you've only to pay them the Danegeld, and then you'll get rid of the Dane. They're talking about Vikings, right? That's what the Vikings would do. They would invade and say, "Pay us money or we'll burn your village down." It is always a temptation for a rich and lazy nation, anybody know one of those? To puff and look important and to say, "Though we know we should defeat you, we have not the time to meet you. We will therefore pay you cash to go away." And that is called paying the Danegeld. But we've proved it again and again, that if once you have paid him the Danegeld, you never get rid of the Dane. It is wrong to put temptation in the path of any nation for fear they should succumb and go astray. So when you are requested to pay up or be molested, you will find it better policy to say, "We never pay anyone Danegeld, no matter how trifling the cost. For the end of that game is oppression and shame, and the nation that pays it is lost." Isn't that a great little poem? It's sort of an upbeat, peppy thing. It's just one step up from a limerick, really. It's got a similar rhyme and rhythm. Don't pay a hostage taker. Don't pay a shakedown. Don't pay an extortionist. Don't pay off China by giving up Meng Wanzhou to get the two Michaels back. Don't pay off Iran with cash. Don't pay them off. Once you pay the Dane Geld, you'll never get rid of the Dane. You send a message to the world, you shake us down. It's always a temptation for a rich and lazy nation. But don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. That's Rudyard Kipling. You see why he's my second favorite poet? Oh, he has some poems. He's the poet behind the poem If. Do you know that one? Give me a second. Throw If back. Every Remembrance Day, I read Tommy Atkins, and it gives me the chills, the same line every time. I can't say it without choking up. I've done that. I've read that poem almost 10 years in a row. Tommy Atkins on Remembrance Day. It's my favorite Remembrance Day poem. It wasn't even for Remembrance Day. It was written before the Great War. But I read it every Remembrance Day. You know, If is great. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good or talk too wise, if you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to, broken, and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools, if you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it all in one turn of pitch and toss, and lose, and start again at your beginnings, and never breathe a word about your loss, if you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve your turn long after they're gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds, this is my favorite line, this is my favorite couplet. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch. If neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, and oh, look at this one. If all men count with you, but none too much. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. It's a little bit Zen, that poem, isn't it? And he, of course, spent a lot of time in India, which was part of the British Empire then. So, you know what, I'm not going to ring Gunga Din, but it's a hell of a poem too. Thank you for that little diversion. Mailer Thomas, 28 bucks. I find Arthur's comment about freedom so true. My father fought in our freedom in Auschwitz by actively participating in the Sonderkommando revolt. I don't know what that is. Was there a revolt in Auschwitz? I'm sorry, I just don't know. I'll look at that. ABC Deaf, 20 bucks. Is the Independent Media Gallery going to be accredited to cover Parliament? Why can't conservatives use a legal method to dethrone the turd? Lastly, good reporting. Too bad you can't have a TV program to reach more people. Well, number one, what are you looking at right now? That's called a TV program. Can you explain to me in any meaningful terms what's the difference between watching something on your phone, your tablet, your laptop, or your large screen TV? I can't. If what you mean is a TV station that's regulated by the CRTC and that broadcasts through a cable network regulated by the CRTC, okay, yeah, so we're not a TV show. But what is these days? I think that these days TV is on demand, which I prefer because that way you don't have to schedule your life around the TV. We're global, we're not just Canadian. We're not subject to the kind of regulatory intrusions that we were when we had a real TV station called Sun News. So sure, I miss the officialness of being at Sun News. I can guarantee you that on any given day here at Sun News, Rebel News, we have up to 5 times the viewership we had at Sun News. So yeah, I do miss the bricks and mortar and the official feeling, but we're freer, we're bigger, we have a wider reach, and people can watch us at their leisure. And it's more interactive. As to your other questions about conservatives using a legal method to dethrone Trudeau, don't look for tricks, don't look for easy shortcuts, that they don't exist. If someone is saying, hey, there's a legal silver bullet to take out Trudeau, it's probably not true. Would that it were so. It's wishful thinking. And maybe if things are dark, we reach out for any hope. we grasp at straws. But don't think that Justin Trudeau can be taken out with some deus ex machina, some miracle. It can't be. And the problems that gave us Justin Trudeau are pervasive, and they remain. What about our left-wing pop culture, our ideological schools, our media monolith that's on the take, our judiciary? There are so many aspects of why the world is the way it is. First of all, you're not going to take Trudeau out with some trick. And second of all, he's a problem, but he's actually a manifestation of a much larger problem. The problem took us decades to get into. It will not be solved with a snap of a finger. It'll take decades to fix. So don't buy someone saying, oh, we just have this one trick to fix it. That's what I think about QAnon. I know people who follow the QAnon theory, and I like a lot of those people, but I see what's happening to them. They're so desperate for some miraculous, almost supernatural solution that they're willing to believe in wisps and vapors. I'm not mad at those people. I don't hate those people. I just think, look what you're doing to yourself. You're so desperate for a solution. You're believing in figments. How about come back with the rest of us and just work hard to fix it? Join a political institution, join a political party, run for office, start a website, call in to a radio talk show, just talk to people. Like, it's a lot more hard work to work to fix it. Baby steps, small increments, hoping for some cryptic miracle is a kind of placebo and maybe even a self-deception. Sorry. All right, let's check the time. It's 12:32. I might just read another Kipling poem. But I want to show you some video clips that Justin's put together. They're good ones. Here's an obvious one. Here's the White House press secretary saying, every other country in the world is letting their kids go back to school. Why aren't we? Take a look at this.
The president has said unmistakably that he wants schools to open, and I was just in the Oval talking to him about that. And when he says open, he means open and full, kids being able to attend each and every day at their school. The science should not stand in the way of this. And as Dr. Scott Atlas said, I thought this was a good quote. Of course we can do it. Everyone else in the Western world, our peer nations, are doing it. We are the outlier here. The science is very clear on this, that, you know, for instance, you look at the JAMA pediatric study of 46 pediatric hospitals in North America that said the risk of critical illness from COVID is far less for children than that of seasonal flu. The science is on our side here, and we encourage for localities and states to just simply follow the science, open our schools. It's very damaging to our children. There's a lack of reporting of abuse. There's mental depressions that are not addressed, suicidal ideations that are not addressed when students are not in school. Our schools are extremely important. They're essential, and they must reopen. Yes.
Absolutely. I think a reason why schools are not being reopened is because teachers' unions, first of all, if they get paid whether or not their teachers work or not, obviously they want to get paid if teachers don't work. Or maybe we have to hire more teachers so we can social distance in the class. I heard that one. Public health officials love it. And of course, the whole point is to get Trump kicked out in November by perpetuating the crisis. You know, out of the corner of my eye, I see a new super chat. Unjust on Trudeau, $2. Ezra, what are you doing to avoid burnout? I don't know. I'm actually going to take a couple days next week. I think as long as things go well, I don't feel burnt out. I mean, I only have so much bandwidth. But you know what, I saw that, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a comment that's not a super chat, but it's caught my eye. And I'm going to read a non-super chat comment. It's by Jakey the Jackal, and it's in response to my comment about QAnon and the idea of a long shot private prosecution of Trudeau. I don't believe those are real solutions. I think those are placebos and a form of self-deception. And Jakey the Jackal says, Ezra complains about Trudeau, But if solutions are discussed, he despair porns and sows doubt, like Grima Wormtongue Boo. I think that's a reference to a fictitious character in Lord of the Rings or something. And I would answer that in two ways. A legal solution to remove a prime minister is not a real solution. I mean, if he commits a horrific crime, yes. There are people trying to get criminal investigations of his SNC-Lavalin matter, the We charity matter. The laws are weak in that regard, and the RCMP commissioner is a poodle to Trudeau. But we do not live in a society. We live in a liberal democracy, constitutional monarchy, checks and balances. We do not live in a society where you remove prime ministers in handcuffs because they're politically odious. You vote them out. You challenge their laws in court and have them declared unconstitutional. You use the Senate to slow things down. Well, he controls the Senate. You campaign. You engage in public discourse. So the idea that it is a solution to have a homemade legal approach that you think you're going to take the prime minister out. You don't think the Liberals would have done that to Stephen Harper if that was a real thing? If it's a real thing just to file some homemade legal action on your own without a lawyer, if that was a real thing, you don't think that would have been done by the other side to Harper? You really think you're going to take Justin Trudeau out? And then what? You think Andrew Scheer's going to be the prime minister? It'll be Chrystia Freeland, even if that fantasy came true, which it won't. So then you've got Chrystia Freeland as the prime minister. You happier now? So it's not a solution. It's a self-deception. But more than that, it's a license for you to avoid doing the real work of getting rid of Trudeau. And so I'll answer when you say all I do is engage in despair porn. Nah, no, not really. I've helped build a company with a team of rebels that does more political work on Trudeau on any given day than I put it to you, the rest of the media in this country combined, and on some bad days for them and good days for us, more work on Trudeau than the Conservative Party of Canada does. Earlier on, I showed you a clip from our FightTheFines.com campaign. We literally created a kind of public interest law firm and told the world we'll represent you on civil liberties cases. And look, we're starting to win. So I'm not having daydreams about taking out Trudeau with a lawsuit. I'm fighting in 4 provinces against civil liberties bullies. You may have heard I wrote a little book called China Virus, how Justin Trudeau's pro-communist ideology is putting Canadians in danger. Happened to go to #1. So that's what I did during the pandemic. I didn't daydream about some fake legal trick to get Trudeau. I wrote a book. What else are we doing? We're suing Justin Trudeau right now for keeping us out of his daily press scrums. We're suing Justin Trudeau right now for keeping us out of the debate, election debates. That's still ongoing, if you can believe it. Last night on the show, I announced we're taking China to the UN Human Rights Council through a law professor at Manitoba. So instead of sitting around and pretending that there's some fantasy abracadabra spell we can cast, and the very fact that that commenter references some fantasy science fiction, I think that was from Lord of the Rings or something. The very fact that that's your reference tells me you like to live in a fantasy land. And you like to think that maybe there's a spell we can do J.K. Rowling style, Harry Potter style, and get rid of Trudeau. It ain't happening, brother. So you got to put down the fantasy books, and you got to get up and do something. And I'm not feeling defensive. I'm just thinking that's a perfect question to illustrate the difference between wishing and working. And there's a lot of work to do. And I feel great about the work we're doing here. I feel so proud of our team, and we're growing. And we've added Drea Humphrey to our team. And I think as soon as today, we might be hiring some new people as well. So that's what we're doing. And I'm not feeling defensive. I'm just enjoying your perfect softball question right over the strike zone. Boom. And I tell you, and that goes to the other question, how do I avoid burnout? Because I'm loving what we're doing. I can't tell you how proud I am that we're involved in those 10 cases on fightthefines.com. And by the way, I wasn't the journalist on any of them. Sheila, Kian, and especially David were. And I'm very proud of them. My own pride comes from helping to organize. I got the lawyer, I got the crowdfunding, so I'm proud to be working with a team of people. I do get involved in some individual projects myself. I just wrote a book. Sheila's written, I think, 3 books. So that's what we're doing. So don't, and I'll stop picking on whoever that anonymous person was. I'm saying get in there and dig in there, and you can make a difference. What's our viewership? I'm going to, you know what, I can't remember. I'm going to our YouTube page right now, and you can do this too, because I have access to some stats that you don't from our back end, but I think the number of views that we've had since we created our site, I think that's publicly visible if you click About. So I'm clicking About. We have had 526,581,865 views of our videos. Let me just say it another way. More than 500 million. And that's just on YouTube. We have similar numbers on Twitter video, Facebook video, and these days we even have Instagram. So I think it's almost 1 billion views. And by the way, that's a view. The watch time, and I'm going in the, I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm just taking, I read some poetry today. I'm just on the back end right now, so, and I don't propose to show it because there's financial information I don't want to show. But I'm on the stats right now. You know how many hours of Rebel videos have been watched just on YouTube? I'm looking at it right now. 39.9 million hours. The population of Canada is about 37 million. So it's like every Canadian watched a full hour of Rebel goodness. So if it helps you get through the night and you think that QAnon or Norman Traversy's long shot legals are what's going to free this country, well, do what it takes to keep your own sanity in this insane world. But for me, I work with friends and allies, and God bless them, thousands of viewers and supporters, to speak truth to power, uncover bad behavior in the public sector, take on public interest cases, not just rhetorically and journalistically, but legally. That's how I do it. Maybe I'm sounding defensive here. I don't feel defensive. I feel celebratory. I feel like we've had a good quarter fighting for freedom. It's been a terrible quarter for the country. I think the Conservative Party of Canada has been absent without leave. Where's the Conservative? I mean, don't tell me it's because all their energy is wrapped up in the lukewarm contest for party leader. Where are the party critics? Where's Andrew Scheer himself? I joke. Fighting for civil liberties, fighting against Antifa, fighting to keep the statues of John A. Macdonald, fighting to stop the extreme cancel culture. I'm sorry, have you seen any of that in the past 120 days? Where's the solidarity for Hong Kong? Have you seen any of that? I've seen a teeny tiny bit of that. I guess what I'm saying is, this is how you do it. This is how we do it. And we are filling a void, but it's such a large void to fill, I invite everyone to join. Do it yourself. If you got a better way, do it yourself. If you don't have a better way, we have a lot of ways you can help. We just got the legal bill for Artur Pawlowski, $2,200. You want to help me pay that? Go to fightthefines.com. I need help to pay that. Our legal bills are about 50 grand a month around here. You want to help me? I could use the help. Or you want to do it your own way? Do it your own way. Or you want to read Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter and come up with a magic spell to get rid of Justin Trudeau? Hey, fill your boots. I'll be back down here on planet Earth. There's some super chats coming in. I'm not mad. In fact, the opposite. I feel like we have had the best 12 months in our company's life, these last 12 months. I feel our work during the Alberta election was top-notch. It's a little more than 12 months ago. I feel our work during the federal election was top-notch, especially our victory at the elections debate lawsuit. I feel how we fought back against Trudeau censoring my last book, The Libranos, huge victory. I feel like our work during the pandemic, huge success. I feel like our Fight the Fine Civil Liberties Project, tremendous, filling the void not just of politicians and journalists, but the so-called civil liberties groups in this country. China virus, I feel good about that personally. I feel like we're doing great. Team is growing. Drea Humphrey doing great. Sheila Gunn-Reid, our chief reporter, my favorite. I'm not supposed to have favorites, but she's my favorite. David Menzies, just all around Ontario, is everywhere. Kian Bexte, good, tough, investigative reporter. That's Rebel News. Thanks for being a part of it. We only survive because of you. You'd think the fact that we don't take a dime of government money would mean we're just dead. I mean, all the other media say, if you don't give us government money, we're dead. We don't take a dime of government money. So how can we survive and we're even growing? How's that even possible? Well, because I think we're giving people what they want and what they need. Because others aren't. Other media aren't. Other civil liberties groups aren't. The Conservative Party of Canada sure isn't. God forbid if it's Peter MacKay. What then? Let's take a look. Boy, there's a lot of super chats. Proud Canadian, $5. You say, like O'Toole, you support Ken Zook, which includes free movement of people like the EU. I don't want UK Islamist migrant problems here on top of our own. If Ken Zook, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK, means freedom of movement amongst those countries, I haven't even looked deeply in it. If it means no borders, then I'm against it. But I'm for all sorts of cooperation amongst the Anglosphere. But I think if we've learned anything these last 120 days, it's the borders matter. Akasha of the Nile, $5. Event 201 was prior to the pandemic, October 2019, a total scenario of what they were going to do, totally pre-planned. It's still on YouTube. Okay, I'll take a look. I didn't, listen, the world is so big, I can't follow everything. Damon the Dam is $5. Ezra, please take care of yourself or practice biphasic sleep. I'm straight, I'm happily married. You know, maybe if I was a young man, the idea of some biphasic sleep, college, experimenting, you know, I'm drunk, you're drunk, whatever. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding around. I'm kidding around. I know that's not what biphasic sleep means. Yeah, I was at college, there was a lot of beer, and someone said, let's have some biphasic sleep. I don't know what that means. Does it involve kissing girls? Kelly Day, $5. Despair porn. Nah, keep on keeping on, my friend. P.S. Love the new reporter. Hey, Kelly, it's great to hear from you again. Kelly Day, one of my favorite people. And Kelly, I'll never forget when you came with your hubby to Manchester. I think it was up in Manchester at a Tommy Robinson rally, and you played that wonderful song, How They Rule You. Oh, it was so good. And for you to make the long journey from Saskatchewan, chills. I get chills when I think about it. It was a wonderful day that I'll always remember. And the fact that you made that journey was just incredible. And by the way, we're redoing that Regina speech business that we were going to have with Dr. Patrick Moore, formerly of Greenpeace. That was canceled because of the pandemic, but we're moving that to the fall. I hope you can do the anthem for us then. We'll talk some more. John P., $20. You bring up talking points that the Liberal Party forgets or don't speak up on because it would damage their reputation. It's normal any person in office would try to cover the wrongs with good actions. John, I don't 100% understand what you mean, but thank you. Lee for Japan, 1,220 yen. I don't know what that translates to, but thank you. I'm a Japanese citizen living in Japan who studied in Lethbridge in the 90s. Oh, that's nice. Very different than Japan. I have finished reading China Virus. I wish someone, not I, would translate it into Japanese. Thank you so much. Well, I would be very open to that. I have to be candid. I don't know if there would be a big market for it because most of the information in there has to do with Canada's relationship with China, Trudeau's relationship with China. I'd say about half the book would be of interest to Japanese people, but unless you care about Trudeau or Canada, I don't think it would be a big seller. But if you know someone who would translate it, I'm completely happy to have them do it and, you know, frankly, give them the lion's share of whatever few sales there would be out of Japan. So thanks for the friendly words from Japan. Mark, $5. What are your thoughts on the disabled people not receiving promised financial support during the China virus while losing access to existing medical supports? I think that is the huge story that will emerge, is all the people who were denied regular basic medical care while we completely vacated our hospitals waiting for this huge tidal wave of pandemic cases that never came. Like I said, the models federally showed between 50,000 and 350,000 dead people. Yeah, you can imagine they would clear everyone else out of the hospitals. It's been 4 months and that wave didn't come. Never did come. Grand total deaths, 9,000. It's a shame, but that's the annual flu season. So yeah, huge, huge problem. Veterans Voice, Chris Semchuk, $7. Can you help veterans? We as a group are getting screwed and are dying off faster because of these treatments. Keep up the great work, Rebel. Well, thank you for that. We like veterans. We try and help veterans. Sometimes veterans groups are controlled by the Liberal government. For example, we raised money for a veterans group. It was only about 15 grand. And 2 veterans groups we took it to in a row, well, one Army group and then one veterans group, refused our money because they were ordered to refuse it by Harjit Sajjan. Imagine that. We were donating money to the Christmas hampers at a Canadian Forces base in Ontario. I forget which one. Because they said there were families on the base going hungry. So we raised 15 grand, but the Liberal government instructed the base not to take our money because it would embarrass Trudeau. Imagine that. It was money. It was here's the money. They wouldn't take it. So then we went to another veterans charity, and they posed with us, took the check photo. We got back to the office. They were in between when we came from there to home, the office. They got a phone call saying, "You can't take money from Rebel." Department of Defense, Harjit Sajjan's department said, "You can't take money." Imagine denying cash. It's just money. No, you can't take it. It's a charity. Imagine that. We finally found a veterans charity in Calgary that took it. So yeah, we love helping veterans. Believe it or not, the Liberals actually try. Imagine how low you have to be to put veterans in trouble to begin with, and then to actually stop private citizens from donating money to veterans. How low is that? Trudeau low. That's how low. Jim in the Red, the real Donald T, $7. Yes, it is sad that the thousands of people that showed up Canada Day was focused on this dream of illegal takedown while Maxime Bernier I think you ran out of words there. Or maybe we ran out of birds. I like the people on Canada Day. We sent our David Menzies to Canada Day. He had a great time with Mocha. Our cameraman, I think, was the one who was there with him. I understand. Imagine if there was some way to solve our problems with some legal trick. But do you really think that legal trick was there all the time and it was just discovered by a homemade lawyer who's not a lawyer, who swears he knows what's up and we got to get this one thing? If you think I'm criticizing his intentions, you're wrong. If you think I'm criticizing his objective, you're wrong. I'm simply saying, guys, it's like a magic spell. It's not real. If there were such a magic spell, do you doubt it would have been used against us or our guys? There's no substitute to hard work. Sneaky Beaver, $5. Looking for any French collaborator? I speak both languages. Quebec needs to read you. Well, we need bilingual people in Quebec. I would like to do that. We did it briefly in 2017. It didn't go as well as it should. I love Quebec stories. I do hope one day again to have a bilingual French-English Quebec presenter. There's so much news in Quebec that's so interesting. Second biggest province, second biggest city, Montreal. And it's doing some things right, by the way. I like the Coalition Avenir Quebec. I like their stance on separation of mosque and state. I like their stance on immigration. There's a lot of cultural identity. I really like a lot of what they're doing. I would absolutely be open to a presenter in Quebec. Kate in Denmark, $2. What do you think about Nick Cannon? Nick Cannon, that's the fellow who went on this rant against the Jews and white people. Yeah, that was crazy. That was a conspiracy of his own, talking about the melanated people. And I noticed he apologized to the Jews, but he didn't apologize to white people for a bizarre slur saying white people are animals. If you switched the language and said that about black people, your apology would be expected. It's quite something that he felt he didn't have to apologize for that part. Yeah, he said some bad things about Jews too, but why are you just apologizing to the Jews? It's very strange. Let me catch up here. Nan Martin, $24. So proud to see Canadian Rebel News in the great documentary, Death of a Nation. Whose documentary is that? I don't know that one, but I'm curious. Cindy Remmer, $5. Thank you, Ezra and the Rebel, for speaking for us. Well, thank you, and we got a great team here. Damon the Dammits, $5. Biphasic sleep means taking a nap in the office. Oh, is that all it means? Taking a nap in the office. I thought it meant when, you know, I'm sure Borat or Ali G has a clip about, you know what? It'll get us demonetized, but can you find the clip of Ali G and feminism? That's what I was channeling. Do you know the one? It'll get us demonetized, but it's worth it. It's so funny. You know Ali G, it's Sacha Baron Cohen. And he would dress up as a character. Ali G is a white Ashkenazi Jew, but he pretended to be a black semi-gangster. I'll send it to you, just so you get the right one. Yeah. And where he talks about how he totally loves feminism, just like I totally would be into biphasic sleep if I was a single man in college again, had a few too many drinks. Let me know when you got it, Justin. You know, he talks about what he likes about feminism. Let me know when it's ready. I'll keep reading. Veteran's Voice. Chris Semchuk talking about Kelly Day. How They Rule You was amazing. She's salt of the earth and a hero. I agree. All right. Have I missed any super chats? Have I caught up there? Mark Smith, $7. Would you ever try a TV channel again? Well, I have a TV channel with 1.34 million subscribers. You're watching it. If what you mean is, would I ever apply to the CRTC for permission to get a channel on cable to then sell that channel to one of Canada's handful of cable operators, then negotiate a fee with them, all of which would be subject to the CRTC and the Canadian Broadcast Standards censorship, I'm going to go with a hard no. And because I don't want to spend time or money with regulators telling me what I can and can't say. The answer would be no in advance. I don't want to be at the mercy. Would you want to be at the mercy of Rogers or Bell, the most regulated companies in this country? Of course not. It would not happen. I mean, hell, they killed the Sun News Network even when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister. Imagine what they would do now. So what's happening is, since everyone's leaving CRTC-regulated cable and going to the internet, the CRTC wants to rule over the internet. I think we have that clip of Ali G talking about biphasic sleep. Take a listen.
Trying to get their girlfriends into feminism.
Oh,
do you think that is right?
That's the clip.
I do.
That's exactly the clip, but we need the video. I see a new super chat. Well, Justin's working on it. Fraser McBurney, $12. This Sunday, Canadians are protesting the lockdown here in Hamilton. We meet at City Hall and march to Jackson Square. Meeting 12 noon, rain or shine. Fun time. Bring signs and your kids. You know, I'm not sure what our reporters are doing this weekend. I think we have a special project, but I think I've heard of that, and we'll see if we can cover it. I've got a lot more to say about masks, and I think I'll do a video on it. If not today, I'll probably do it on Monday. The pandemic's over. The number of new cases in some places looks like it's rising. That's only because there's a massive amount of testing. But these people are not sick, they're not in the hospital, they're not dying. The number of cases is plunging in Canada. The number of deaths is plunging. The number of hospitalizations is so low most hospitals don't have a single patient. All right, here's Ali G talking about biphasic sleep.
Feminism.
But do you think it is right when they try feminism when they is drunk at a party or whatever with a few mates?
What does trying feminism
You know, try a bit of feminism, and when they is sober the next day they get back together with their boyfriends.
I don't understand what you mean by get feminist.
When they kiss a woman.
What, being lesbian are you talking about? Sexually?
Aye, for
But
real.
that's not feminism is not about sex, having sex relationships with other women.
It ain't
That is
only
not
about
what
that.
well, it's not about it at all.
He was really funny. He was really funny. The thing is, he tore through the UK, and soon everyone in the UK knew who Ali G was, so he couldn't fool them anymore. Like, he was fooling her. Then he came to America, and he just tore through America. Donald Trump very quickly realized it was a setup. I think Ron Paul did also, but almost everyone else was fooled by it. And then he exhausted that in America. And then he had other characters, Borat. He did another one called, he did Bruno, and then he did something about America. He did a show recently called, I don't know, where he had different characters. He played an Israeli guy, and it's a shtick. You trick people and see how far you can go and get them to go along with it. It is funny. I won't lie. It is funny. I think that, like so many comedians, when he's young and edgy, he's politically incorrect. That was a very politically incorrect skit about being feminist. But now that he's old and rich, he doesn't like to tell jokes that would hurt people's feelings. In fact, it was Sacha Baron Cohen who gave a big speech about how Facebook should censor more. Seriously, the guy who's saying, throw the Jew down the well for laughs and money is now lecturing us on what we can or can't say. Yeah, I did. All right, well, it's 1:02. My favorite parts of the day, we're reading some Kipling. I might read some more. There's a great video of Gunga Din being read in a beautiful accent. I might show that to you another day. I also enjoyed doing a victory tour bragging about the stuff we've been up to here at Rebel News. And I thank you all for your super chats. I got so much work I got to do, so I got to get going. That's it for today. I invite you to subscribe to my nightly show at 8 p.m. Eastern. That's behind a paywall, but it's only $8 a month. That's less than Netflix. And you can even get a deal. If you buy a year in advance, it's only $80. So $80 for a whole year. It's $80 Canadian. So they're mini bucks. And in addition to my nightly show, you get Sheila Gunn Reid's weekly TV show and David Menzies' weekly TV show. So if you can't get enough, may I invite you to sign up for, we call it Rebel News Plus, and you can find out more at rebelnews.com. All right, until tonight, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, see you at home. Goodbye, and keep fighting for freedom.